Okay, this is for Algebra 2, and this is Transformations on Radicals. And before you fill in your notes page, the first thing we had to do was go to our calculator and set our window. The x-min was negative 9.4, the x-max was 9.4, the y-min was negative 6.2, and the y-max was 6.2. We're talking about radical functions, which are square root functions. So our parent function is f of x is equal to the square root of x. If you went to your calculator and went to y1, put in square root of x, and looked at your graph, it should look like the graph that's at the top right of your paper. Your endpoint is at the origin, 0, 0, and it goes up to the right at a curve. We're going to be comparing each graph that we look at to this parent function. So leave this at y1, go to y2, and you're going to go to number 1 on your notes and put in at y2 the square root of x plus 3. When you put this in your calculator, you're going to be at y2, and you're going to do second x squared, which is the square root, and it's probably going to open up parentheses for you. You're going to put an x. Make sure that you close parentheses before you say plus 3, because that totally changes what it does as if you don't close the parentheses. So when you do this and you look at your graph, it should look something like this graph. Where is the new endpoint? Well, here is your new endpoint at 0, 3. So what happened? How does it compare to the parent function? It went up 3 units. Number 2, if you went to y2 in your graph, in your calculator, and you put the square root of x minus 3, your graph should look like this one. And so here is your new endpoint at 0, negative 3, and the way they compare is it went down 3 units. Number 3, if you were to go back and take that parentheses out and do y2 is equal to the square root of x plus 3 and then close your parentheses, your graph is going to look like this. Your new endpoint is over here at negative 3, 0, and what happened is we went to the left 3 units. For number 4, the square root of x minus 3 looks like this. Your new endpoint is 3, 0. It went to the right 3 units. Number 5, you have at y2 the square root of x plus 4, then close parentheses, then say plus 2. Here is your new endpoint. It's at negative 4, 2. So we had 2 changes. We went left 4 and we went up 2 units. Next, number 6, you have the square root of x minus 2, close parentheses, minus 1. Your new endpoint is at 2, negative 1. And we went to the right 2 units and down 1 unit. If we had the 2.5 times the square root of x, your endpoint is at the same place, 0, 0. We had a vertical stretch, otherwise known as a vertical expansion, using a 2.5 scale factor. If we have 0.6 times the square root of x, once again your endpoint stays at the origin, and we have compressed vertically, otherwise known as vertical compression VC, using 0.6 for the scale factor. If we have negative square root of x, endpoint stays at the origin, 0, 0, but we had a flip, or you would say it reflected over the x-axis. If we have negative 2 times the square root of x, origin is still the endpoint, 0, 0. But we had 2 changes. We did a flip or reflect over the x-axis, and we had a stretched vertically, otherwise known as vertical expansion. So a summary of what happens. If you're multiplying on the outside, okay, you have a number at the beginning. If it's greater than 1, it's a vertical stretch, otherwise known as a vertical expansion. If it's between 0 and 1, it's a fraction, vertical shrink, otherwise known as a vertical compression. And if it's less than 0, in other words, if it's negative, reflects over the x-axis, we also have called that a flip. If you're adding on the outside, we're talking about a number at the end here. If, excuse me, if you add a number, it goes up. If you subtract a number, it goes down. Adding a number on the inside, if you add it, it goes left. If you subtract, it goes right. Take a minute, think back. You have an orange paper under Thinking Maps that describes every one of these. We've worked with all of these transformations before, just not with a radical. Remember, anything at the end is a vertical move up or down. Anything trapped inside with the x, in this case it'll be in the square root with the x, is a horizontal move. It does the opposite of what you would expect. So plus goes left and minus goes right. If you have a number at the beginning, that's your vertical expansion or vertical compression. A negative at the beginning makes it flip. You know all these. You have an orange paper that will show you all these. Okay, so don't forget about that. Okay, so now they're going to give us the parent function and tell us what changes, and we have to come up with a new equation. Well, if it reflected over the x-axis, that tells us there's a negative at the front. And if it went 5 units up, that tells us we're going to add 5 at the end. So your new function is y is equal to negative square root of x plus 5. If we stretch it, that's going to be a vertical expansion, so it's a number at the front. It is twice as tall, so you're going to have times 2 at the front. And then if it went to the left 3 units, left is going to be in there with x. Left is the opposite, so we're going to say x plus 3. So y equal 2 times the square root of x plus 3. Here's your new function. That was transformations of f of x, otherwise equal to the square root of x, otherwise known as transformations of radicals. If you have any questions, come see me during speak.